Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. Here we're live in Austin, Texas, rounding out the round of 16. We've got 2 more best of 5s to bring you today. We got some ZvZ and some TVZ. I'm your host, Nathan Fabricant. Welcome. I'm joined on the desk by In Control in Rotterdam. Neeb, the American hope taken out. Only Special remains as a non-European to advance in this bracket. How are we feeling about that?
You're the host, Nathan Fabricant, joined by In Control in Rotterdam.
Yeah, I used my real name
I caught that.
today. Yeah.
I caught that. You need to use your superhero name.
Yeah, not today.
Okay, fair
Toned
enough.
it down.
You're the boss. That's fair enough. What were you saying?
European invasion over here in Austin.
That's what he's asking. Yeah, I mean, for a long time, they've been the stronger players. It doesn't really catch me that far off guard. We still have Special. And I think this is going to be a recalibration tournament because what's kind of crazy, and I know I've said this a couple times, but we have, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, we've got Valencia coming up in Montreal, like boom, 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 right in a way. Whereas with between Germany and here, it's been 6 months. So it's going to have a different feel to it. And a player like Neeb going out in the round of 16 to Mana 3-0 as hard as he did, that's going to be a gut check moment because last year was he won 3 of 4 events. Nobody did that to him.
It feels painful considering that this is the tournament where the North American players usually have their few good results because we don't see them a whole lot. And I think that's got to raise some concern, surely, Rotterdam, for Valencia and Montreal.
No, it's really weird because even in the past, even if it wasn't Neeb, we had Masta having some very strong runs over here as well. And I think a lot of people had big hopes for Scarlet. And I'm actually shocked. I really expected a Jon Snow to have a good run or something here as well. Or maybe one of these other guys, one of these up-and-comers, maybe a Future or an Epic. Just someone to get really excited over. But yeah, it's been all Europe domination. And like Jeff said, we all know that Europe is a stronger region and has more strong players, but you still expect at least a couple of these North Americans to go far. Now, Special still could make us all look silly and somehow end up winning the entire tournament.
Yeah.
I think Special's probably quite happy to see Neeb being eliminated because now he's going to play mostly matchups, which he feels really good in.
That was his Achilles heel almost all of last year. We're going to take another look at the bracket and the schedule. Keep y'all informed on what is going on here. We have, of course, Mana eliminating Neeb. He advances to face the winner of our next series. That is Stephano versus Snute. And that is going to be interesting. 3 series remaining today, as we have that Zerg versus Zerg coming up. 2 fan favorites head-to-head in Zerg versus Zerg.
You know, I've got a very weird stat. How we had that stat earlier today where Lambo won his first series ever against Nurture and then somehow lost 14 on a row, which doesn't make sense because Lambo was supposed to start winning series later on when he got better.
It's one of the 3 monsters.
Yes, maybe it was. But then with Snute versus Stephano, I just looked at their head-to-head. It's also really weird. Do you know what the score is between Snute and Stephano in best of 3 series?
Very favored to Snute.
Yeah, so Snute is 7-1, and then someone's going to be like, well, you know, I guess he won everything in the last 2 years. Like, no, Snute started beating Stephano one time in 2011, one time in 2012, in 2013. The only series that Stephano won was the most recent series, which were the qualifiers for this event. I think if you... Who would have predicted that? Like,
I would have predicted that.
Stephano being 1-7 against Snute and only winning the most recent series, that doesn't make any sense.
What I find harder, Kevin, is letting you guys believe that I don't know everything. That's the harder part for me.
Did you crunch? You crunched all the numbers?
I'm constantly crunching numbers.
I always try to come up with some numbers that you haven't crunched yet.
Well, it'll happen eventually. I'm crunching those numbers too, actually, to find out what it is.
The numbers that you don't know. Yeah.
Now, ZvZ, that's not what Stephano's known for. Kind of what Kevin did, by the way, to crunch those numbers even further down, is it's always been his Achilles heel, to use that term again. It's been his soft matchup. He could go to toe-to-toe with MC, who we just had here, MMA, we had some great matches, MVP back in the day. But it was always the ZvZ where it was like, if he could survive that, if he could get past the 1 or 2 Zergs, that was how Stephano got a lot of success. And now it's kind of funny because it doesn't happen as much, but you still hear commentators be like, well, he's retired. No, he's not retired. He's full-time. What's happened is the scene is caught up to him, and it's flooded with really darn good Zergs. So Stephano's results, it's a lot of round of 16s, it's a lot of round of 8s maybe, but getting past that means you got to win not just one ZvZ usually, but several, and that's really hard for him.
Yeah, the Zerg players especially taking over. In this side of the bracket, he will probably have to go through some other players. I think there's a lot of people out there that do believe that Special has a good chance against Bly since he is generally a very strong player. We've also seen Special kind of flub out against some of these players when he is favored as well. And that's one of the weird things, the inconsistency.
Bly has a really annoying knack to just win series that people are like, how did you do that? It's like, his wins for everyone else is the most disappointing result of the tournament. They're like, he lost to Bly. But Bly keeps doing that. Like Bly keeps beating people, and it never has the feel of like, Bly's really dangerous. It's always just like, you lost to Bly. How'd that happen?
And let's not forget, of course, that our other player here, Snute. He went through the gauntlet to even make it this far in the tournament. The way that he arrived barely in time to play his matches, and then, of course, having to go through all the group stages and making his way this far today.
Yeah, he had a couple of fun games on stage yesterday against Nice. We're looking at some of those highlights, and he did drop a series later on. He dropped his first series, but then he bounced back very strong, and he won the deciders match. So yesterday, it was indeed all about surviving, and I mean, we've said this so many times, right? We don't talk about Snute as one of the top 4 favorites for this entire event. I don't know if that's fair. I don't know if that's justified, because you look at the last 2 WCS events of last year, and he made it to the global finals. Even in Leipzig, he had another decent showing. So it's really weird how we talk about Snute. Like, Snute is really good, but we don't expect him to go that far. But if he wins here, he's quarterfinals again.
And he's got Mana, which you got to favor him against Mana, I think. But you know, Mana's the underdog that kind of beats people anyways too. So it's good. It's getting exciting.
It's giving us a good story in control.
Look at that.
We have
storyline.
We have so much awesome stuff going on here in WCS, and things have really shaken up. I think the only thing that we still can't really dismiss is the other side of the bracket, where Serral is looming,
lurking,
and waiting to take the whole entire tournament. But
I think Serral's also probably looking at these results, and he's like, the players that I was most worried about keep dropping out. I mean, Scarlet beat Serral at IEM Pyeongchang, so maybe that would have been a tricky ZvZ. He's like, I don't have to worry about Scarlet anymore. It's like, well, NIP is always difficult, perhaps especially in America, like you said. Even though this is not, like a sport with a stadium, it's still, it's still home ground advantage. People cheer for you. It's like, well, NIP is out as well. So I was like, so who else do I have to worry about exactly?
I think you're right, but I do have to like the fiction that you just said Serral was worried, and I'm like, are you kidding?
Well, if you believe him that Terran could be that potential weakness, then
Hero
Special is the man to do it. Hero Marine on the other side hasn't had quite that much hype, but we've been bringing it up in this tournament. He has been looking very good here. So
I'm excited for that series.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's going to be one hell of a series, especially even that Challenger series that you guys casted. Yeah, Serral won, but Hero Marine put up a really good fight, and I actually spoke with him quite a bit about that series, and he really feels that he has learned from it. It was a good learning moment, and it's really funny as well, by the way, to hear Hero Marine speak with a lot of respect about an opponent, because Serral's pretty much the only player on planet Earth that's going to get that respect out of Hero Marine, but it's really cool to see a humble Hero Marine. It's like, I think I've learned from it, and I really hope that I can take 2 maps this time. Like,
I like if you analyze it too, he's like, everyone agrees he's good. He's like, I have to as well.
All right, we're going to introduce the players up on the stage to get our next series on the way. Smix introducing 2 legends of StarCraft 2.
Legends indeed. We've seen some great matches today, but this is going to be an amazing one. I want to test something out. Austin, who here is cheering for Stephano? And who here is cheering for Snute? Let's go ahead and bring these players out. It is Stephano and Snute.
I snoot you to win. Perhaps the most endearing term used here in this World Championship Series Austin so far. Snute versus Stephano. 2 legendary Zergs, no strangers to championships, fame, fortune.
I love these guys. Ilias is one of the best interviews you can do. He is a great player, really fun. One of the original foreign hopes. This is a guy that took it the distance. And then there's Snute, who over the years has just been one of the most consistent and best competitors we've had. And also, like, so I think it's back to some of the more emotional StarCraft moments. It includes Snute a couple of times where he's just like, I worked so hard for this. And when you watch his behind the scenes stuff, you know Snute worked really hard for it. This is not something that he takes casually.
What's funny as well is that for the longest time, Stephano was the highest earning StarCraft 2 player outside of Korea, and then eventually Snute took that crown from him. So that makes this a little bit of a beautiful matchup as well. I think that by now NIP has sneaked in that as well, because NIP has been winning so freaking much last year and got a couple big wins. But for the longest time, it was Stephano holding on to that title, and then eventually Snute took it from him.
It's like these couple of half millionaires. It's like, look at these guys go. The game's been good to them, hasn't it? You know?
Crazy to think, despite how good these players are, that the players like Serral have come up so much. These players have been around forever. Snute and Stephano have been playing for so long. I think the jokes already came in on the official StarCraft esports account.
What year is this?
Are we going back to Broodlord and Fester? I think one of the O Gaming casters was like, please don't send me back in time there.
I think both of them would actually be okay with it.
That's when they won the quarter
But
million.
if you think about it, this could be the longest series of the day, despite the fact that it's a ZvZ.
Right.
Neither of these guys likes to attack. They both love static defenses, they both love queens, and they both love units like Broodlords and Lurkers.
Don't talk like that.
And there's our tasteless sponsored moment of the day where we get the breakdown of how long this match could go for.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Could be a long one.
Could be.
I mean,
He's not wrong.
Could be short.
Could be
too.
short.
No,
Well,
you never know.
Come on, but you agree, right? Snute with all his queens and his defensive plays.
Yeah,
And Stephano.
It could go long.
No. You don't think it's trademark of these two, Jeff? You think that's a random comment?
I'm just trying to think, like tuning into a soccer match, like, ladies and gentlemen, this match could go the distance, maybe even overtime, Bob. Yeah, it could be overtime. It could also not be overtime, and they just do that forever. And then my head explodes.
Kevin,
So, Jeff, if
Kevin's excited about this. I feel bad. I'm raining on your parade.
Let's say you have Bly versus TLO and then you have Stephano versus Snute. Which series do you think lasts longer?
They both could go long.
Come on,
Not
man.
go long.
All right, Jeff. All right.
I'm sorry, Kev. I would tend to agree with you. So
Don't
just
worry, the
not play
thread's
that.
going up right now about how what you're saying is right.
Why is In Control bullying Rotterdam?
I haven't
Find
even-
out after this match. It's time for Snute versus
so insecure.
Stephano.
Let him talk about it.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for more WCS Austin action. Another ZvZ surprise. It's not a very good surprise because you knew it was coming. Lots of Zerg players, and we're going to start it off one more time. This time on Acid Plant in the bottom right-hand corner in the blue. It's Stephano.
Representing Gamers Origin, an absolute legend of the game. But one of the slightly more modern Zergs, the guy who kind of took Stephano's crown through 2013 and 2014, one of the most consistent Zergs, hailing from Norway and representing Team Liquid, he is Snute.
That's right. A candidate for most amazing StarCraft 2 real player name, Jens Asgard.
Oh, it's so badass.
What a god.
I want that name, man. It's these crazy Scandic people with their awesome, like, mythic names and stuff.
I mean, that is where quite a bit of our mythology comes from. And quite a bit of our StarCraft mythology as well. Of course, a god of the game. And I'm very excited that we got a chance to hear from two other gods of the game, MC and MMA, earlier for their documentary. Maybe in the future we'll see one about Snute. I think we already had a WCS Signature Series piece about him. And that has just been fantastic.
He's one of the most inspiring players, you know, as someone who competed alongside Snute. And I would almost see him as almost like a bit of a mentor for me as a young budding Zerg player back in the day. You know, that's how long he's been around. You know, he's seen washed up people like me kind of come up, retire, never reach the heights of him. But I think there's a lot of Zerg players who look up to Snute because, you know, he's the first person to say that he kind of isn't necessarily the most naturally talented at the game. For him, it's all about focus, hard work, and application of that hard work and kind of study of the strategy of the game over many years. You know, he often struggles in a certain aspect of the game, and he's one of the most devoted at kind of nailing down a way to solve that problem. Zerg versus Zerg, of course, one of the most wily beasts to tame. It's a wild matchup, Rapid. It's hard to get a handle on, but these guys have definitely done pretty well in the past, especially Snute.
Yeah, sometimes when metas or patches change, pro players have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, how do we figure this out? ZvZ has just kind of always been like that. It's like, well, surely there is a way to play this more perfectly, but sometimes it seems like it's still just intractably difficult. So we've already been through a few ZvZs today, but what's going to look different about this one? Is it just that both players play very defensively?
Well, what's interesting about Zerg versus Zerg, it is so hard to nail down what optimal play is because it's so based on these very variable factors. Your attention, how many actions you can dish out, but also where your screen is. Where are you looking at the right time? There's a big push and pull in terms of attention, micro in the action, and how that goes can affect a lot of things. Definitely both players have a more defensive outlook on the game usually. And for now, it looks like Snute adopting a slightly more aggressive position. Both players committing to some Zerglings, but this is not a massive Zergling-Baneling commitment. It's both players making Banelings on the defense. Snute kind of moved across the map, was like, I'm going to push. No, actually, I'm going to go home. I've got Banelings there. Any other player would have taken up a more aggressive stance, but Snute here playing very carefully, and Stephano going to be the one to start to put a bit of damage on this third hatch.
Right now, Stephano is going to contest this hatchery, but he has less Zerglings. Even if it's just a couple less, you're going to lose the fight. And that definitely makes a big difference with these few Banelings starting to come through. Could have been a massive connection, but instead it was not.
Oh, yeah, good hold so far by Snute. The Queen's come over. The Queen's always providing a little bit of an anchor against the Zergling-Baneling defense. Their ranged damage, as well as the fact that they're armored and they've got a lot of hit points, means they're almost immune to the Banelings, and they can focus them down from afar. That's something Zergling-Baneling has a tough time dealing with. Oh my gosh, that was an impressive surround.
Yeah, getting sandwiched up against the rock and well, I guess the hard place, but one of those had claws, and it nibbled away all the way in his army supply, now down 10, and maybe that doesn't seem like a lot, but when that's Zergling battles, it means so much in the early game.
Yeah, nice bit of momentum here for Snute. He's going to start to put the aggression on this third base. I believe there are a couple of drones exposed in the open. The Queen comes over, but it's actually exposed. It doesn't get between the minerals. Stephano losing that Queen. The momentum here heavily in Snute's favor. He's droning up hard behind this. He just wants to try to waste mining time, take a few favorable trades. He doesn't even need to get any more damage done, but it is continuing to roll in. His Banelings finish. That third hatch taking massive damage.
A desperation Roach Warren thrown down here for Stephano, but I don't even know if that's going to come up in time. Just non-stop Zerglings being rallied across the map here for Snute. He gets one Baneling in, but he doesn't quite get the connection he needs. And maybe these Zerglings get cleaned up, but Stephano is just desperately trying to hold on.
Yeah, he's got a lair and an upgrade coming in on the way behind this. Stephano trying to macro in the midst of the chaos, but more Zerglings are flooding across, and there's more Banelings here as well. No Banelings for Stephano. A good split from him, minimizes the damage on that one, but nonetheless, the pressure's on. A single good Baneling hit for Snute could turn things even further in his favor.
Oh, those Banelings, every time they get close to that clump of Zerglings, they just seem to slip further away. And the Zerglings from Snute survive. They pick off more and more drones, and if you look at the supply for Snute, the army just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, Snute here just piling on the aggression. He's squeezing in production cycles behind this. For him, he realizes Stephano is an ultra defensive player, and that if he just keeps poking with these middling amounts of aggression, he's finding the damage, and Stephano keeps on trying to get upgrades. He keeps trying to drone in the middle of this. Snute's having none of it. He's even got roaches across the map now, and Stephano is in a tough spot. The fighting just seems to be going on never-endingly at this third base, and these roaches here creating even more threat.
Yeah, the Roaches coming out here. We talked about, or I mentioned that Stephano was going to go for a few of his own defensively, but Snute's actually come in a little bit ahead of schedule, now morphing to Ravagers just to heal them up just a little bit. And Snute, this army out in the middle of the map, and especially the reinforcements coming, I don't know if there's too many ways for Stephano to deal with this.
Yeah, he's going to start to push in his Snute. Snute's got the big advantage, 27 army supply ahead. I don't think he has a lair. That's like the one thing. No, he does. He actually starts up roach speed behind this. I was going to say that's the only advantage Stephano has. But right now, in the numbers, in this direct engagement, it is all Snute. The red swarm coming across the map. The Zerglings flooding in. Stephano's +1 range upgrade kicks in, but it is too little too late, Rapid. That is a huge army for Snute.
Yeah, it's a lot more damage by almost no more units. These roaches just can't last long enough. Finally, what feels like a critical mass of Zerg from Snute crashing into Stephano's natural expansion. The roaches pop out but die almost instantaneously. The lifespan of a roach, it's just not very long, at least not for Stephano. Snute's forces keep coming across the map. The parade finally pushing through the natural. It's just so close. A battle balanced on a knife's edge, but finally it will fall over in Snute's favor. The roaches from Stephano get taken out. The forces from Snute funneled all the way across the map, and it looks like this could be a killing blow.
Yeah, I mean, Snute,
eventually.
he's diving in. Right now, Stephano is in his death throes. Snute went in for a game of knifey spoony. Stephano brought 2 spoons. The classic mistake. You never want to end up with 2 spoons in Zerg vs. Zerg because your opponent will overwhelm you. continue. Masses of Lings and Banes into the Roach push. Snute with a clean, clinical Game 1 victory, establishing a nice bit of momentum at the start of this series.
Yeah, Snute pulled out the fork there in the end. Of course, the clearly superior utensil and was able to take out Stephano. That's the way you do it.
Man. You know, you got to hold them down so you can slice with the knife there. I mean, that's Zerg versus Zerg. It can be a little bit, I think, hard to understand for some casual viewers. What's funny about Snute's games is any other player, I think, would have just won with the Ling Bane because they would have reinforced it harder. Snute built like 20 workers while the Ling Bane was pressuring, but he kept kind of sliding a few more Ling reinforcements in. So we had this kind of weird protracted battle where he really just got a massive edge in the early stages of it, but because his reinforce was staggered, we didn't get to actually see him turn that into an immediate victory. It was like, no, I'm getting more economy, I'm getting some tech, I'm getting the roaches, I'm still pressuring you with Ling Bane and finding little trades. Now the roaches are here a few minutes later, and that's where the finishing blow comes. But it really does all come back to that first Ling Bane pressure when he got in on top of the third base. He had a few good Baneling hits, and that's Zerg versus Zerg. It's over in a flash if you don't take safety precautions. Snute, he had extra queens. Stephano, I don't think he built any extra queens, so he was definitely playing a little bit greedier.
Well, when somebody snoots you to win, you do have to live up to the challenge, and currently Jens is definitely doing that. For Stephano, it feels like this is a guy who, years after he has died and his body is encased in ice, a mosquito will extract some DNA, and that mosquito will then fly into a laboratory, be cloned into a reborn Jens Asgard who hasn't played any StarCraft in millions of years, and into a Stephano who can just sit down and start playing at the top level. I don't know how this guy does it. He's gone and come back and gone and come back, and here he is again playing at the top level. We'll see if his level is high enough to take out Snute as we get into our next map on Lost and Found. Some pleasantries exchanged by our players, but no pleasantries here left to go. Let's go ahead and introduce our blue player in the bottom left-hand corner. It's Stephano.
Facing off against him in the top right-hand side. One of the most unique play styles in the game. A guy who has triumphed some very interesting styles throughout. Representing Team Liquid in the red, your Norwegian champion, he is Snute. The Hell Muffin King, as they called him back in the day.
Certainly was. Definitely, especially in the WCS Circuit environment, he really did use those very characteristically. Over in WCS Korea and in GSL, we were seeing guys like Rogue really kind of pioneer that dark, mixed a few in, or at least he is doing that currently. But specifically in ZvZ, I don't think we'll see too many of those.
Very unlikely, I would say.
Highly, even.
Until we get some island maps in the pool, which, hopefully...
we put one in ASL for Brood War. The next step is StarCraft 2. One of those new innovative maps. I don't know if we'll see too many of those either.
Just for the sake of the comedy of reading the pro gamer feedback, if that decision ever went through, I am fully behind it.
No, thank
Blizzard,
you.
Get on it. We need to see some more nice, fair, balanced island
I'd settle
maps.
for 3-player maps. One step at a time, Pig.
Interesting, very minute variation for you high-level Zerg nerds out there. Snute not building an Overlord. He's actually just droned up a little bit harder, and is going to be just building his queens immediately there with that. Oh, actually, sorry, it was Stephano who delayed the Overlord. Snute did build the Overlord ahead of time, whereas Stephano delayed his first queen slightly, and instead basically just said, you know what, this is going to allow me to squeeze out an extra drone a little bit earlier, get a few more minerals, and my queens are going to be perfectly synced up for those injects, something he likes for that macro cycle.
As soon as it pops out, it's going to go ahead and get that macro going. And a hallmark of our last two ZvZs that we had, Pig, was that game number 1 is where one player goes for the hardcore cheesiest cheese and just smacks the guy down in 3 minutes. But this series, it actually seems like both players are doing kind of what the guys on the desk did say, and staying back and playing a little bit more of this 3-base style instead of just going 13-12 or just hitting a 12 pool timing.
In the past, Stephano's weakness, he's played against Serral, he's played against Snute, he's played against these top Zergs like a laser as well many times, and he often does just try to fight them head on in Ling Bane, being a bit greedy, droning behind it, and he sometimes gets overwhelmed. I like him mixing it up here. He's going for a very fast carapace upgrade. He's actually shown a spine crawler at home, which I'm sure is going to puzzle Snute a little bit. Seeing multiple queens and a spine, he might start to think, oh, you're going to wall off with evolution chambers and a roach warren. You know, this sort of very, very defensive play. And actually, Snute's reaction to that is to build a lot of Zerglings and a Baneling nest that's already on the way. A lot of players would cancel in this scenario. They'd say, let's be economic. But Snute says, no, let's go for the extreme aggression. Let's just try and bust through. And if he can hit before Zergling speed and Carapace are finished, this could work out so well for Snute.
I love when you just look up at the production tab and see the pro player pull the trigger. This is the culmination of years of wisdom and experience. The ability to know when you can kill your opponent or maybe not kill, but cripple, get an advantage. And for Snute, that's now.
He's going to try and get an Evo Chamber wall off his Stephano. That queen there trying to block. He wants to protect this line. Oh, Banelings are in the mineral line. Drone's very exposed. But actually, I think Snute needs to do more direct damage here. The spine crawler will fall, but 2 more queens coming down. There's another spine. And Stephano has defended, but not without sustaining some economic damage. 6 workers have gone down, and Zergling's even going to dart on into that main base.
Zerglings, especially wounded ones, not the greatest against the full worker line, especially with queens to come over to clear them
not a
out.
single drone.
But yeah, no drones getting taken out there. I mean, 6 did go down earlier, but that is a very impressive defense.
44 workers behind this for Snute on 3 bases. That is a massive 17 worker lead. He's going into a Roach Warren and an Evolution Chamber, but I'm not sure he realized that this is a Carapace upgrade. I feel like he needs to get these Banelings up yesterday. They're not quite ready. Snute underestimating this counterattack. He's not ready for it. He's gone a little bit mad here, thinking he could defend the 3rd base with just queens, and Stephano gonna dart on into the main. Banelings are finishing up morphing. He's got to try to defend. Snute needs to protect those workers. The Lings split off, detonate the 2 Banelings in the main base. At the natural, a great detonation from Snute.
That natural detonation, if he holds on, may allow him to come back into this, but he's just taking so many losses. So many that it evens up the worker count that you were pointing out was his big advantage.
Yeah, very tied up right now in regards to those workers. Snute still with more production. And I mean, that supply definitely tells a story. I can hear Todd's voice in my ears right now, talking about where to look on the screen. And indeed, it's all in roaches right now. I mean, Snute has actually managed to get out a wave of roaches. He doesn't have the upgrades. He doesn't necessarily have all of that pressure going. Stephano's doing a good job of defending this, but Stephano a bit ahead in the tech, trying to catch up on the workers. But Snute has the superior numbers out on the map right now.
And Stephano is continuing to play a dangerous game. He's going for so many of these upgrades, but continues to fight these risky engagements, sometimes even losing, knowing that he'll be able to remake units that will be stronger in the end.
Yeah, he's got that +1 range almost finishing up, and against these Zerglings, I mean, that's going to be beautiful, having 1/1 roaches so early in the game. And check it out, his lair just finished. That times out perfectly to start +2 range. So upgrade-wise, the longer this game goes, I mean, those upgrades are going to be a beautiful advantage for Stephano. Snute can equalize that, though, through the economy, and this is where Zerg versus Zerg gets interesting, or any mirror match, is where you're looking at players kind of going for different advantages in the game. Snute going more for the economy, trying to utilize that production off this 3rd base. Stephano, on the other hand, a little bit more tech-heavy. He's got the faster Roach upgrades on the way. He's got kind of that higher tech army, but doesn't have as much economy behind it.
I love these consistent little tiny run-bys. When you hear that these are defensive players, it's one thing to think, oh, they're just gonna chill out on the sides of the map and macro out. But no, they are consistently being active, getting in there for scouting information, getting in there for harassment. Right now,
Snute's actually doing something so smart. Sorry to cut you off, Rapid. He's doing what we call a fake push. He just showed no lair. Stephano went in all 3 bases and he said, you don't have a lair. You're all hitting me on hatch tech. It's going to be roaches and lings. He doesn't realize Snute was droning his 3rd during that. His 3rd is fully saturated. Notice how Stephano, he's so defensive. He's like, I got to get roaches. I got to get ravages. I got to group up. Look at the worker count. Snute being a greedy, greedy Zerg is up at 66 workers, a 4th base against a 43 drone economy Zerg. The only thing Snute needs to worry about now is, well, okay, you've scared him into building a big army. Now you've got to be able to defend that army. And he's got to get a lot of roaches out. If he can defend this attack from Stephano, I don't even know if the upgrades will matter. The sheer numbers will be overwhelming for Snute. Stephano has 1 attack to make this all work.
The biggest thing about this attack for Stephano is that when he goes for it, I mean, like you said, this is going to be it. For Snute, we talked about how his economy is just going out of control. Now, with a base coming up, I mean, Stephano can't let him have this, and he's gonna go in. He has a high Roach Ravager count and those upgrades. Can Snute hang on?
1-1 versus no upgrades for Snute. He doesn't even have a Roach speed, I don't believe. His Roaches and Ravagers are taking the worst end of this engagement, trying to defend a 4th base. Maybe a little bit too cocky from Snute. I don't think there's any reason to try to hang on to this 4th, but he's getting a little bit ahead of himself, and Stephano pouncing on the opportunity.
Yeah, these 1-1 upgrades crushing through everything. Snooty might have the macro, but he doesn't have the units. Stephano is going to break this front base. Wow. He takes out the queens, and Snute just has nothing behind this.
Got a little bit ahead of himself here on the droning, trying to hold on to that 4th base. Snute not realizing just how monstrous this Roach army is. It didn't look like it had a lot more numbers, but when you count for those upgrades, you realize just how powerful these Roaches are. The drone pool doing a good job there, helping Snute start to rack up a few Roach kills, but he is still down in the army supply. He's still down an upgrade here, and that 4th base will definitely be going down.
There it is.
Snute holds on for now. And Stephano started droning, but I kind of feel like, I mean, he's had to sacrifice so many workers. And Stephano, yeah, looking at this, he's like, wait a second, I've got way more stuff than you. Let's just take it out right now.
He's going to take it out. I love that he's continuing to thin out these Roach forces, just equal. Well, as the longer you take in equal trades, the better it's going to be for Stephano. He was able to kill that base, and this is just going to be too much. The snowball rolls downhill and gives Stephano the opportunity to tie up the series.
You know, it's kind of funny because we were pointing out that sort of mind game Snute was doing there, where it's like, he was the one he created the snowball. He placed it on top of the hill. He said, hey, I'm going to scare you into making this huge army right now. But I don't think he realized just how much bigger his economy was than Stephano. Stephano was on 43 drones with a massive upgrade advantage. And there was Snute saying, yeah, let's hang on to a 4th base. And it's not a decision you see Snute kind of messing up on very often. Usually you would realize that, pull back, defend the natural, pull drones even into the fight. If he hangs on there, that's a big economy lead.
I mean, you look at the dynamics going on in that game, and you're like, okay, well, this is a very smart way to play the game. And I feel like at some point, maybe Snute forgot it was ZvZ, and all of a sudden, maybe having 60, 70 drones is cool, but, you know, not if you don't have anything else, right?
Yeah.
So you got to give Stephano credit for finally allowing those upgrades to pay off. He understood that was, like you said, Pig, that one timing that he had to go for to stop Snute from growing out of control, and he did it.
You know, I think we could maybe talk about the moment where, I guess when Stephano started to counterpush, Snute accidentally ran all of his Zerglings into the Roaches, and that was his only vision. His lair was so late, he didn't have an Overseer. He'd lost his Overlords because the Ravagers had sniped them down that were near that side of the map. So Snute was very blind, and, you know, I think definitely, you know, we have the eagle eye. We get to look over the top of the battlefield, see everything. Of course, the players only see around their own units. So it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, of course, like, you know, Stephano's way lower on workers. He's got this big army you've got to defend, but Snute didn't have that info. Didn't get to see the fact that there were no drones on Stephano's 3rd base. So a little bit dry on the scouting there. Would have loved to have a few Zerglings kind of darting into the bases and checking just how big that army was.
One thing I remember being pointed out on the desk, I don't know if it was Jeff or somebody else, that said that day number 2 potentially could be the hardest day for Snute. Yesterday was an insane gauntlet this guy had to run. Sometimes literally running from plane to airport to plane to fly here. He gets off the plane, gets into the car, gets to the venue, plays his first game, struggles through everything, and 3 monsters later, he advances all the way here to the playoffs. And then he has to survive long enough overnight to come back and do it all again. And you can see, I mean, this is a strain on all players, but specifically Snute. He has a long series here, and then he has to come back and play stressful games tomorrow as well.
Yeah, you know, there was that unfortunate delay yesterday, which a lot of the players are like, oh, you know, it's a little bit hard, it's a little bit tiring. It is a long day one of these WCS Circuit tournaments. We love this open bracket format because it allows so many up-and-comers and so many kind of non-established players to get their name out there and have a chance. It means we have a long day of games. And when you add the fact that you're flying in just the day before, you get a couple of 14-hour delays and you're stuck in airport sleeping on a bench like Snute was. I mean, it's kind of terrible. He said he got about an hour or 2, I believe, of sleep the night before yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
He did come straight from the airport to the venue. Immediately had to play games all day long for about 11 hours. you know, it's a monstrous day. It's a real endurance match. And it's definitely something where you don't just instantly recover from that with one night's rest. He's really hoping to get through this match, have another night's rest before the next round of games. But this series is now tied up 1-1. Both players neck and neck, and it's effectively a best of 3.
So let's go ahead and get into it. Pig spawning onto the map, a Dreamcatcher in the bottom right-hand corner. In the blue, this is Stephano.
And facing off against him in the top left-hand side of the map, a man with a lot of fans out there all across the world, one of the heroes of the Zerg race, in the red, representing Team Liquid. Give it up for Snute.
You know, I saw that one guy change his Neeb sign to a Snute sign, and I feel like you can still do the really deep Snute cheer if you're a fan of that deep Neeb cheer. Yeah,
I actually think I heard that out there.
You can get that going on. So if you're a fan of that, then you can keep on cheering for Snute. And he might need it, because even though his pedigree, his esports earnings, if you will, if you want to use that metric for success, are incredible. I mean, so has Stephano been. I mean, this guy, as you saw on the plaque that just came up, is a 4-time champion, one of, if not in his era, the best performing foreign player outside Korea. This guy has been a legend, but he's gonna have to come back and show that he is still just that legendary. Here today, same build starting out from both sides, so nothing too crazy.
That would be so weird. If one of these guys went 13-12, it would be so out of character to like just do a one-base Zergling Baneling rush. It would be so unexpected.
I mean, that's almost the ultimate mind game, right? The more solid your mechanics are, the more you consistently play macro games, the more rewarding it is to mix up a little bit of cheese in there. And you know, we talked about how Scarlet had been one of those developmental players that had just really added on a whole lot of you know, facets to her potential. Didn't really get to see a whole lot of those during her games versus Nurcio, but maybe we'll get a chance to see some of those here, although it doesn't look like those will come out just yet.
I definitely think Snute is a player who's very good at preparing, very good at playing to his opponent's image. You know, kind of in that game number 1, it seemed like a very well planned out series of attacks to take down Stephano. Funnily enough, I feel like game number 2, he was almost just kind of going, you know what, you're Stephano, you're going to try to make up 60 drones and mass roaches as well. And he kind of forced Stephano into not doing what Stephano would like to do.
And just play the longer game?
Yeah, like normally Stephano would just do that, and you know, the strategic choice of droning so hard is correct, but he put so much pressure on that Stephano kind of had his hand forced. So it was this weird sort of reversal of what the players wanted to be doing.
Stephano's like, oh, I guess I have to go kill him now.
It's like, oh, okay, you're not ready. All right, yeah, I'll take that game. Of course, Dreamcatcher, a map where the thirds are very spread apart. Both players opting for different third bases. There's so many long pieces of grass on this map. We saw Scarlet run 20 Zerglings into a Baneling earlier and tap out instantly. There's so many site blockers.
Same third bases, right?
Yes, actually, that is the same thing.
Yeah, angularly symmetrical this map is.
Yeah.
I guess they're not actually the same third base, if you want to get ultra technical. So they, yes, in a sense, they are different picks.
No, you're 100% right.
But they are symmetrical in that they are mirrored across the diagonal. So
speaking of mirrors, 27 workers apiece, both on a third base. But once again, Snute is the one who's being aggressive here. And I love this choice. I think it's always easier to be aggressive than defensive in these Ling battles, especially because Stephano likes to skimp on the queens. Now, I think he might have learnt from game number 1. We've got 1 queen over here and no second queen joining up just yet. He does want to take down those rocks, but the Lingbane pressure is still here. And look at the worker count. Snute getting a big worker lead behind this aggression.
Let's watch these first early Baneling connections. Much better there for Snute. He gets a good one, and now he's going to be able to push deeper into the third base. I mean, I'm not sure how much advantage he's going to be able to get off of this. Early trades are not necessarily the most impactful, but in the end, things actually look pretty even, aside from Stephano having to pull a couple of drones.
Angry drones trying to join in the fight there. Rawr. They didn't get the memo that they are not, in fact, Zerglings. They do end up returning to the drone line eventually. I think this is something we see from Stephano. He loves to try to take these perfect defensive engagements. In Zerg versus Zerg, I don't think anyone ever plays a perfect game, and I do feel like Snute's gained a small advantage from this. We see him adding all of the tech behind this. Lair, Evolution Chamber, Roach Warren. He's also up a couple of workers, and once again, mounting another wave of aggression. And this is just such an easy decision for Snute. It's like, hey, put on the aggression. If I mess up, I lose a few Zerglings. I've got a lot of room to pull home before I take economic damage. If Stephano messes up once here, loses all of his Lings and Banes, suddenly Snute's in the worker line. Notice here, Snute says, you know what, I'm outnumbered, pull back, wait for more units, pull my queens to the front, and this just gives Snute so much time to prepare for these swings in aggression.
Yeah, ZvZs, you can really get caught off guard. If you don't pressure your opponent accurately, you can have what happens in that last game, and all of a sudden he's up 20 drones. You're like, oh, wow, I really just cannot let that happen. So let's see how this game goes. That is a forward fourth.
A very fast forward fourth. Snute, I mean, like we talked about how Stephano just wants to make a lot of roaches, right? And I feel like Snute's like, you know what? Having a faster fourth, having a bit more economy will allow me to eke out an advantage, but this is definitely very, very abnormal play from the Norwegian Zerg. He's still only on 4 gases, 57 workers, but I think if he senses a moment of weakness, he's just gonna kind of like explode in workers and try to drown Stephano in overwhelming numbers.
A couple of very valuable scouting lings get in just in time to see Stephano's lair morphing in the natural. They get a chance to scout all the way around the main and get a drone. The bonus drone.
The drone was trying to slide his way out of there. He was kind of stuck against the other drone, trying to put a spore crawler down. Unfortunately, didn't get it. A lot of roaches on the way, as well as +1 carapace. I think Stephano's cancelled his lair in the main base, and I think he's just going to go for a huge roach Zergling timing attack. Meanwhile, Snute macroing up. He has swapped into mass roach production. I think that Zergling count was invaluable. He realizes there's a high unit count. He sees the push out. This time around, Snute has the information, and he is very well set up to stop this push. Look at the timing of the upgrades. +1 missile attacks is going to kick in. Zerglings reinforced for Stephano is what his attack relies on. It's about Zerglings wrapping around your roaches, Ravagers landing biles, but these roaches are now going to 2-shot those Zerglings rather than 3-shot them, and that could be really huge. The carapace is not done just yet. He really needs that upgrade. Stephano trying to press his way forward.
Biles don't land in the back there on Snute's army, and that is going to allow him to push out. He's going to have a good concave here, but the Zerglings wrapping around for the backside are actually going to deal a lot of damage to the rear Ravagers. That being said, the Ferocious in the front are going to crush through everything from Stephano, and this is a massive hold from Snute. His defense impeccable, and no matter how much gets rallied across the map, Stephano is pushed back.
Yeah, this timing just felt a little bit too delayed in this game. The Zerglings, they've got a very narrow window where they can kind of flood and surround and overwhelm. Snute was having none of it. His roach count was monstrous. He was even microing, turning his weakened roaches into Ravagers to give them a bonus to armor, which effectively makes them immune to Zergling damage. They only do half a point of damage. And now Snute both defends the Zergling counter. Yeah, he lost 7 workers. Doesn't matter. His roach push is pressing down on Stephano, and he is going to be taking this game out.
GG, that does it. Snute with the lead in the series after 3 games to put himself 1 game away from, I guess, the repeat of what we saw Lambo do earlier. Get that advantage, then press it home in the final game. And see the look on Ilya's face. This is not going well for the Frenchman.
Yeah, definitely a point where I think Ilya might need to go back to the drawing board. We've seen this happen in a lot of his Zerg vs. Zerg series, and generally it's how Stephano likes to play StarCraft 2. He's not a build order guy. He's a guy who likes to kind of get a solid style. He'll have some variations, but he likes to just kind of get through to the mid and late game, and that is where he's a master. He often plays the same opening, the same sort of style over and over, and in this matchup, more than any other, I feel Snute's taking advantage of that. He's getting the aggressive momentum. He's gaining an advantage, even without actually getting better fights. I feel like he's just forcing a lot of defense out of Stephano, and he's droning so hard behind it. And I think Stephano here should look at putting on some aggression, or look at investing in a 2nd and 3rd queen at the front. Get a bit more defense in non-Zergling Baneling, because his Zergling count is just not being effective on the defense. They don't help against Banelings. His Zerglings are stuck kind of running back and forwards and not really achieving what he'd like. So maybe slide a counterattack across the map, maybe invest in more queens, but he's got to do something. Game 1 and Game 3, Snute just dissecting him in a very simple fashion.
Wow. You say it's a simple fashion. I guess you can explain it simply, but the execution is just so monumentally complex.
Oh, yeah.
Everything that you have to keep in track. I had an unfortunate conversation a few days ago with somebody trying to explain to me about the way that you're supposed to play StarCraft. He's like, yeah, you just do the things with the units. I'm like, yeah, go try that real fast. Let me know how it works out for you. Because these guys are titans of the game. They're experts at everything you're seeing here. They might make it look easy, but it looks good no matter what they do. Let's go ahead and get into game number 4 on 16-bit. Spawning in the bottom left-hand corner in the blue. This is Stephano.
Playing for Gamers Origin. And showing a bit of love for the Norwegians up here in the top right-hand side, representing Team Liquid. Let's give it up for Snute.
There we go. We have fully co-opted the Neeb cheers into Snute cheers, so the legacy lives on, even though, well, not a lot of North American players do.
Unfortunately, no. It has been a good weekend for Europe so far. And in this match, it is, of course, you know, France or France and Tunisia are up against Norway. Europe versus Europe. And it is going to be a 16-bit game. Now, the cool thing about 16-bit is this map, you get 3 bases pretty much free. Very easy to defend, just 1 choke point up front. And Snute, changing it up a lot. He's actually going for a hatch pool, no gas, straight into a very quick 3rd base. Whereas Stephano's going for the more normal hatch gas pool. So Snute is just saying, skip Zergling speed, go straight to the Roach game. And he's really shifting gears for this map.
Yeah, wow, we don't get a chance to see, I guess, too many games on 16-bit. A lot of times the way that the veto process goes includes the 2 older maps, Catalyst and Acid Plant, and then I guess the more standard map, Lost and Found in the new map pool. So as we branch out into some of our newer maps, things like 16-bit, a lot of new strategies are, you know, start to come into play. And when I was looking at past games to try to get a feel for what our players might do here, I'm watching them play all their games and I realized, wait a second, this is all on an old map pool. WCS Challenger, all of the qualifier matches not played on 16 bits, so this really does offer the opportunity for these guys to face off against each other in a brand new and exciting way. So I'm excited to see what it looks like, and it's already going to be a little bit different, like you said, Pig, with the extra opportunity to get that safe in-base natural.
Yeah, and Stephano going to be going for the same build order as map 1. As I said, he doesn't have a lot of opening builds. Looks like he's got the normal hatch gas pull into 3rd, and this one where he delays Zergling speed, gets the fast carapace upgrade. But if Snute just kind of walls off the front, which I think he might be doing with an Evo Chamber and some Roach Warrens in the near future, that's going to be so good against this. So I don't really know if Ling upgrades are the best on 16-bit, because normally that's all about mobility. So the more attack angles you have, the more you're able to find openings, you force more defense, you find more damage. So Stephano, I mean, keeping the upgrade's not a bad idea, but I don't want to see him just like mass Zerglings and go for a flood. I think that would be a little bit of a silly way to play into Snute's hands.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I first noticed when playing on 16-bit is that the distance by ground from the 4th to the in-base back natural is just forever. So if you do go for, I've seen some Zergs favor drop, like Gumiho's doing this a lot, Losira doing this a lot, where you'll build a drop overlord and try to sneak back into the back base. And that can really catch people off guard, especially if they invest into these big walls up by the very wide choke to their 3rd. Or natural, I guess it is.
We've definitely seen some like weird different like drop play with like roaches and stuff whenever mutas aren't out. You know, I know I'm sad inside that there's no more hatch tech overlord drops anymore, because this sort of map I'd be dropping Lings in like 3 places.
Single tier for all of those.
No more of that. But Stephano scouted the gasless player and he's still massing Zerglings. He is banking on Snute not being prepared. Snute is up 14 workers, and you know what Snute's doing? He's building more workers right now, and he spots the Zerglings coming out. Roaches start up in the production, but he's got a wall off right now. And I think if Snute does this just right, I don't see Stephano getting a lot of damage done here.
I think Snute is, exactly like you said, Pig, doing this just right. This is the Goldilocks defense. It's not too much, not too little. It is just right. Throwing up those Evo chambers at just the last second. He's got Queens and a Spine Crawler there to defend. And just look at how helpless these Zerglings are. When they kill the Evo chamber, it's just going to help Snute defend even more.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely not any advantage gained for Stephano. As I said, not necessarily the strongest build for this map. Stephano can still play it up, but he can't keep throwing these Lings away. He's got to keep those alive to buy time against the counter-attack. There was no upgrade on that just yet, so Snute just going to start up his upgrades on his Healthy Evolution Chambers. He's got a solid wall, and Stephano only now catching up in the worker count, but Snute's already got a big Roach Force out. This is a big map. Stephano can still come back, but he's definitely down in the numbers. He's got to be very clever strategically to try and equalize this.
I'd like to just give a welcome to our viewers from the World of Warcraft AWC Summer Camp that just joined us. Big thanks to all of you guys. I guess there are a few hallmarks. If you guys have StarCraft pets in your World of Warcraft, you might wonder what universe they're from. So welcome to our universe as we finish off our series here. Snute could be finishing this off with very strong defensive play. Stephano keeps trying to go aggressive, but Snute just deflects it at every turn.
Yep, if Snute can close out this map, he will be going through to the top 8 of WCS Austin here. Snute now pushing out with some roaches. He's continuing to build up that work account. The double upgrades are on the way, and an infestation pit. Snute looking like he wants to play a very, very slow game, and most likely just going on into infestors from there, adding a bit of fungal growth, of course. Going to be good against any potential Mutalisk swaps, but just good for dealing out damage over time. Those energy units always very efficient in the long run.
I don't know if you remember, maybe back as far as Heart of the Swarm, but anytime you're going for Mass Roach versus Mass Roach, fungal growth is just a big, gooey way to deal with just huge masses of units. So we saw a Scarlet try a little bit of a style like this, going for infestors, but I think this is a little bit more popular. It's what I talked about earlier. Granted, it's coming a little bit later than I thought it was going to be, but a little bit of Overlord drop sprinkled in for some variety to allow you to breach big solid walls like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these roaches actually caught a little bit apart here. Snute does have the numbers advantage. Stephano realizing that now as they get consolidated. He's going to pull back. He's going to get the snipe on the 4th. Very nice pickup by Stephano.
Yeah.
Stephano is working with a smaller army, a smaller economy right now, and he is going for a different tech. Snute playing very defensive with the Roach Infestor, going for 2-2 upgrades starting now. Meanwhile, Stephano going for the Tunneling Claws and the Burrow. He wants to be burrowing those roaches into the back base, into the economy lines, trying to get damage done that way. And that's going to be key to kind of pulling this game back into an even position. For now, Snute just playing it very slow. There's one thing we've been a little bit critical of Snute for in the past. Sometimes he does get an advantage, but because he's such a patient player, his style kind of like, lets his opponent get back in the game a little bit. And I feel like right now, you know, he could be maxed out, but he's kind of just adding all the upgrades, adding the expansions. And this isn't necessarily the wrong way, but it could be argued that it's easier to just push across with those superior numbers, hit a sharp timing, and knock his opponent out. Now Stephano has time to start getting those roaches across the map.
I mean, yeah, when all these upgrades do hit for Snute, he's going to be pretty strong. But you're right. I do think he has a window right here to press the advantage. But he's not going to go for it. And that gives Stephano not only time to macro back up and get back in the army game, but more importantly, time to spread these burrowed roaches out all across the map. So when Snute tries to think about going for just a heads-up attack, he's going to be phasing harassment from 3 or 4 different angles.
Look at this movement. The roaches there move back to the north. They're waiting. If the army moves out, he's going to backstab both the natural and the 4th. He hasn't really shown his hand yet. And this is great patience from Stephano, not getting over eager, and he's starting to tech on up. He's adding the lurker den. He's saying, all right, I'm not gonna get a good angle right now. I can't force the issue. Let's get the next tech. Let's go up into those lurkers to get that splash damage. Snute here just kind of waiting for the right engagement. He's going to go for Hive, no doubt going to start 3-3 upgrades when that does finish. And here we go, roaches sharking around the map. Both sides looking for a good fight. Stephano's got to be careful. He's got less units here right now. He's got to just pull back and get those roach counterattacks in. Snute sensing he has the larger numbers. He's going to jump on top.
He's going to try, but at the same time, he will be backstabbed behind that, which is usually in general where backstabs do occur. It's going to be in his natural, in his forward fourth base, and all that damage is going to come through right as Snute tries to press the attack. A beautiful concave comes in along with a lot of supportive fungal growth. It's crushing through Stephano's army. He's not even getting harassment, economic damage done behind this. So Snute just gets to power through everything as Stephano's chances evaporate.
So decisive here from Snute. You know what beats a cheeky couple of backstabs? One big
Go kill the dude.
Just go in the front, shuts down the army. He'd already taken down a bunch of the roaches. Yeah, he's taking a bit of economic damage behind it, but he is on top of everything.
I have 3 roaches in your mineral line. Oh, also you're dead. But, you know, the burrow right there, a cheeky way to try to make this go a little bit later. I don't know how effective that is going to be, Pig. The roaches somewhat unwillingly pop back up and, well, they go back down the hard way, just evaporating in front of the withering might that is Snute's army, crushing through all the way into the main and actually taking down the hive at the same time.
Yeah, Lurkiden's gonna fall. No cheeky lurk is gonna squeeze out in this map. Stephano has just been kind of out-macroed in this game. Snute, with such a large army, takes the 3-1 victory. And he's made it through the ordeal in day 1. He's finished off his opponent in the round of 16, and he will be going through to that final day of the WCS Circuit Championship, Austin.
What a story. What a performance. We snooted several victories here today. And for Stephano, it is a little bit heartbreaking to see him do so well. But let's find out what Snute has to say on stage with Smix.
Thank you very much, Rapid. There we go. Congratulations, Snute. Despite the travel gods trying their hardest to handicap you yesterday, you'd secure yet another top 8 WCS here in Austin. How are you feeling right now? Are you feeling better today?
Yeah, quite a lot. I got a good night rest, so I'm feeling quite a lot better, especially now.
Now, you were just up against Stephano, and Stephano, obviously a legendary player. He has that reputation from 2012 that precedes him. I do know that he's been practicing very hard lately as well. So when you go up against him, what do you think of his style?
I think it's a very strong style once it gets going with tunneling claw roaches especially. But I was accounting for that in the last game. I sent out overseers. I saw roughly how many roaches he had committed to counterattacking. And with my timing, I knew that I could go for a big attack. I like to do these big attacks with kind of all-in mass roach attacks. And yeah, it worked out. I think he's very strong, but ZvZ has always been a little bit of an Achilles heel for him. CVP, CVT, I think he's a lot stronger than I am against Protoss, for example, way better. So yeah, I guess I'm fortunate that my ZvZ has been doing a lot better lately.
And now with this win, you're going to be going up against your own teammates. It's going to be a liquid team kill in the quarterfinals against Mana. Mana told me earlier that he's been practicing damn hard this year, differently than other years perhaps. So what are your thoughts on the improvement that he's been showing in these past few months?
He's been improving a lot. He's consistently placing very high on GM right now. Seems to be fairly well-rounded in all the matchups. And I'm struggling more against Protoss than the other 2 races. So it's going to be a very tough match for me. But we played a lot in the past. I have a good record against Mana, but I'm very concerned with his current form. So it's going to be close, but I hope that my head-to-head record from the past can keep going.
Well, it still means a liquid player is guaranteed in the semifinals, so that's one positive there. Congratulations again. We'll see how that match goes tomorrow in that quarterfinals. Nathaniel, let's head back to you.
Thank you very much, Smix. And congratulations to Snute taking that series victory over Stephano. Feeling a little bit of that rush coming in now, as he was not the player talked up at the start of the tournament, but as we've said before, that seems to be when he performs his best.
Snute is like a StarCraft gremlin. Like if you pour water on a gremlin, they kind of become more powerful. If you pour love and affection on Snute, he shrivels and becomes worse. But if you kind of neglect him, if you put him in the dark and you leave him alone by himself, he'll grow into a fearsome competitor that's able to take out a Stephano in the round of 16 in lightning quick fashion.
Yes.
Do you even know what we're talking about, Kev? Did they have that movie in the Netherlands?
Gremlins?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He's like, that's one of our holidays. Are you kidding me?
No, those are those little scary animals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, when I was a little child, I was afraid of them. I would never dare to actually go upstairs earlier when they were on because I was afraid I'd find them in my room.
You just don't feed them after midnight.
There's
You're
fed
fine.
gremlins again.
Anyway, as we've managed to not see Snute move
Get the
on,
food off.
and Team Liquid team kill will be guaranteed with one of their players reaching the semifinals. Brought in a very important question here.
Wow.
Was the series
How
as
long did it go? Yeah.
as you thought it would go?
I was actually surprised to see Stephano being quite aggressive, especially in those later phases. It felt like a lot of his attacks really had to do damage. Even the Ling opening on 16-bit, he opens up with all those Lings. You see 4 Evo chambers, just runs in a couple of times. It felt awkward to me to see Stephano be that aggressive against someone that we all know is a very strong defensive player, and they will Snute. Now, obviously, you can't just both sit back forever, but I was kind of surprised to see how aggressive Stephano was, and I have the feeling he truly played into Snute's strength of like, okay, let's defend, and then march to the other side of the map with one very powerful big attack that actually ended the game, like Snute said as well.
You would say you were shocked by the duration of that series then?
I mean, it wasn't the shortest series of tournament, but it wasn't as long as I thought. I expected some tier 3 units. I would have loved to see some silly lurker, blinding cloud play, and maybe a couple of brute lords.
It's a tragedy. Roddy expected it to be a little bit longer, but let's look at the bracket now, see where things stand as we have only a few more matches to go today.
A couple even.
It's going to be literally a couple, as it were. A laser going up against TLO, and I know you guys love it, another ZvZ. And then to round things out, Bly takes on the final non-European player in this tournament. It almost feels like we're talking about WCS with Koreans in 2013. Can the lone American do anything here?
Yeah, Special is one of the favorites in the tournament, I would say. He went into it. And I like his interview day one. He's like, I'm not playing afraid. Not afraid of anyone. They're like, Sarah, what about him? He's like, nope, anybody. It's totally okay. Especially Bly, by the way. Nobody went into this and said, Bly, keep your eye on that guy right there. Hot out of the Ukraine. One of the best there is. But here he is, round of 16. He's kind of dangerous.
I think it's going to be one of the most entertaining series of the day, though, because you know that Bly has builds that don't make sense, that are not supposed to work. But like Jeff said as well, they just keep on working, and it's almost not a surprise anymore, but we still treat it as a surprise because here he is, again, in the round of 16. But obviously, that's not going to be next. Elaser versus TLO.
Yeah.
And I mean, finally, Dario gets his appearance in the round of 16.
He
so that's gonna be a good one.
He survived the round of 32 curse, and we'll see if he can make his way to the quarterfinals. It's going to be TLO going up next. This is the World Championship Series. We'll be right back after this break.